Okay, folks, just wanted to take a few moments to talk about the Cumbre Vieja volcano and the potential collapse and tsunami at La Palma, Canary Islands. This is a research paper that has been released by Stephen Ward and Simon Day, dating back to 2001. In general, the abstract statement and overview of the article is one which describes geological evidence suggesting that during a future eruption, Cumbre Vieja volcano on the island of La Palma may experience a catastrophic failure of its west flank, dropping between 150 to 500 cubic kilometers of rock into the sea, which would trigger waves that could reach heights of 10 to 25 meters that would arrive on the coast of the Americas and certainly have a devastating effect to the areas surrounding La Palma. One thing I will note here is that in the abstract statement, they mention the fact that this could be 10 to 25 meters in height, yet 3 to 8 meters in height. I'm not entirely sure if this is a typo or what's going on here, but if we look at 3 to 8 meters and we convert that to feet, we would end up with 10 to 25 feet. So there's a discrepancy here in the very first paragraph of the research paper that is considerable and somewhat concerning. However, I will note that in the conclusion of the research paper, they reiterate the fact that there could be tsunami waves of 10 to 25 meters felt at transoceanic distances, all the way across the Atlantic Basin and reaching the Americas. And they say geological evidence suggests that during a future eruption of Cumbre Vieja, the western flank may suffer a catastrophic collapse, and for a 500 cubic kilometer slide block running westward down slope at 100 meters per second, the computer models predict that tsunami waves of 10 to 25 meters will be felt. There's a very important, at least two different references here to studies that were released in 1999. And we can see that under the section 2, geological evidence for a future collapse of the Cumbre Vieja. The geological evidence that's laid out here doesn't seem to be refuted in articles that I've noticed, which are saying that the timeline, however, is completely off. There is no real timeline that's laid out, though, by Stephen Ward and Simon Day that I can note in this this research paper. Essentially, what they're saying is the risk exists. They highlight their sources for what leads them to believe that this risk exists. And then they talk about the potential impact, but there's no timeline that's necessarily laid out. The timeline that we're seeing across the internet in various forums or YouTube channels, whatever it may be, they're making it seem like this risk is imminent and is something that could happen during the current eruption. There's a YouTube channel called Afar TV, and they have one of the most well-moderated chats from what I've seen of all the live streams. However, they also have the most censored chat that I've seen. And say what you will, moderators do what they will, the Nightbot does what it will. However, the Nightbot specifically calls out two different articles, and those articles are refuting the fact that this type of collapse is possible during the current eruption. But before I get into those articles, I just want to reference this 1999A article and show you what I did to look up the source here. So this research paper was released in 2001 by Stephen Ward and Simon Day, and they're making reference to older scientific articles that had previously been released. So under section 2, geological evidence for the future collapse of Cumbre Vieja, talks about this article from 1999 and essentially says during most, if not all, of the past 125 Ka, that's kilo annum, that's thousands of years. So over the past 125,000 years, Cumbre Vieja has been the most active volcano in the Canary Islands. Subaerial Cumbre Vieja forms the southern third of the island of La Palma, rising 2 kilometers above sea level with average slopes of 15 to 20 degrees. And they mention that this article has observations that over the last several thousand years, the distribution and orientation of vents and feeder dikes within the mountain have shifted from a triple rift system to one consisting of a single north to south running rift with westward extending vent arrays. They argue that these structural reorganizations are in response to evolving stress patterns associated with the growth of a detachment fault under the volcano's west flank. So this is where the risk of that falling off into the sea occurs. The rift zone has shifted from a triple rift into a single rift that simply extends from north to south. So if you were to draw a line through the Cumbre Vieja volcanic system from north to south, the scientists are calling out the fact that this single rift is at risk of failing, causing the catastrophic collapse that leads to a landslide displacing the water, resulting in a tsunami, which would devastate the eastern coast of the United States, including Florida, not to mention the areas immediately surrounding La Palma Island. Okay, so this reference in 1999A, you can see I have a search here. I'm just going to look at the last result in that search, which takes us to the references section. And it's an article called Recent Structural Evolution of the Cumbre Vieja Volcano, La Palma, Canary Islands. I copied that title, pasted it into Google, and then I found this article, Recent Structural Evolution of the Cumbre Vieja Volcano, La Palma, Canary Islands. Volcanic rift zone configuration is a precursor to volcano flank instability. And it lays out a slightly more detailed description of what Day and Ward talked about here in section 2. I'm not going to get into everything within this research paper, but I will place links to all of these articles within the description. So Day and Ward are referencing an article 2 years prior to this research paper being released, which calls out the actual instability of the island itself and why they believe that this type of outcome is possible. A very interesting thing that I will note is in the article that has been, there's actually 2 articles that have been called out by the Nightbot on the Afar TV channel. One of those is this one. Experts flatly rule out a mega-tsunami in the Canary Islands. So let's take a look here. David Calvo, head of Volcanological Institute of the Canary Islands, and Jesus Ibanez Godoy, professor of the Earth Physics at the University of Granada and a seismologist specializing in the geophysics of active volcanoes, have ruled out in the program Eblo debit the possibility of a mega-tsunami in the Canary Islands. With this resounding affirmations, both experts come across the video fragments which in recent weeks have been circulating on social networks which refer to this possibility. It is a legitimate mathematical model from a scientific point of view, but extrapolated to seek notoriety. A model of something that could happen millions of years from now. Okay? First of all, he said it's a legitimate mathematical model from a scientific point of view, which adds credibility to this research paper. I was kind of surprised to read that, to be completely honest with you. They're saying that the mathematical model is legit, but that it's not going to happen for possibly a million years. Interesting. So then there's this second article. New research puts killer La Palma tsunami a distant future. The volcanic island of La Palma on the Canaries is much more stable than generally assumed, Dutch scientists working on the TU Delft have found. The southwestern flank of the island isn't likely to fall into the sea, potentially causing a tsunami, for at least another 10,000 years. I really don't need to go any further than this to stoke your desire to continue learning more. I'm just going to leave it right here. We have one article stating that it's going to be maybe 10,000 years. And then we have another article saying that it could be millions of years from now. What is it? I keep hearing over and over that the time of man is different from geological time. No, they're not different. It's a different time scale. And if scientists are at such a huge discrepancy that you have one predicting millions of years and another predicting tens of thousands of years, to me, I hate to be a skeptic, and I'm a natural pessimist. I'm a realist. I like to question things. I'm from Missouri. I live in the show me state. This is showing me a bunch of nonsense. It's showing me that there is no consensus. Some scientists are saying it could be 10,000 years from now. Some scientists are saying it could be millions of years from now. What is it? What's the answer? Do you know? Can you read this information and tell me with any degree of certainty that you can say that there's consensus among the scientific community that this isn't going to happen during the current eruption? I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. Because we're supposed to trust the experts. And it literally took me less than 10 minutes to do this research, starting with this paper, looking at the references within the paper, then I've been watching this volcanic eruption on my second monitor while I work since day 2. And I've been watching people debate this real time in chat and have their words censored by these moderators running the chat. I'm not going to fault the moderators at all. They do a great job of filtering out a bunch of nonsense. But at the point when the channel itself is referencing two articles which are so far from each other in terms of laying out a reasonable explanation for what could and will happen, there is no consensus. 10,000 years, a million years, at that point, it's all nonsense. And no one really knows. I'm more than happy to have a conversation about this. So if you have any further evidence, please comment. I'll happily make another video referencing any sort of documentation and research papers and data that people are willing to present. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Maybe there will be a part 2. Please provide your evidence one way or another. I'll take a look. I'll take some time. Again, maybe I'll make another video. We shall see. Take care. Be well. Peace.